Okay guys, today what we're going to do is start using the idea of flash buttons. As soon as you understand how to use buttons, you can now control when to start something and when to stop it, and have all kinds of other ideas connected to using a button. A button today will also introduce the idea of a bit of computer programming, which in Flash is called ActionScript. So what actually can you do with buttons? And let me just give you a brief demonstration. There's all kinds of neat things you can do with a button. Okay, this is the most basic of buttons. Okay, and basically when you go over it, you see that little finger pop up, and when you press down, you can make it simulate like you're pressing down. Here's another example of what you can do with a button. It can be words too. So here are words, and as you go over them, they can animate and come back and forth and pulsate. All right. Now, buttons can be given intelligence. So what you can do with a button is you can have some animation, and when you press it, it stops. And when you press it again, it starts. So you can add intelligence to say, play it, stop it. Here's some other things you can do with buttons. Okay, you can actually have them go somewhere on the internet. So you can have a button that as you go over it, cycles around, which is kind of cool. And then when you press it, it takes off to the internet. Now I've done this here, so I'm not going to go to the internet, but if you did this at school, it would actually take off to the internet site that you picked. All right, some other examples of cool buttons. Here's one that actually has like a little TV set and a controller. So when you press it, the video starts with the car moving. When you stop it, it stops. And the last one, which is the craziest example. You can create a really cool looking button. There's a button actually, sort of asleep. I'm going to go over it with my mouse. Wakes up, the eyes bulge. I press down, it gets excited, and then I let go. It goes back, and then it goes back to sort of sleep. Okay, so buttons are really neat, and we're going to use them a lot. You're going to use them for your gumball machine and everything else. Okay, so let's take a look at how you would create a button in its most simple form. So what we'll do is we'll start off here, and we'll just draw a little square. All right, and like we've done for the movie clips, we'll grab the whole thing. We'll go up here, convert it to a symbol. Now listen, up until today, we've been doing movie clip, movie clip, movie clip. Today we switch it to button. And I'll just call this the red button. Okay, now, nothing special there, but if you were to play this right now, and you put your mouse over it, you would see the little finger, which means it's a button. But it doesn't do anything cool or anything. Let's put some intelligence and some neat things into it. To enter and make the button fancier, you have to double click on it. When you double click on it, you sort of go to the underground. Notice how this says scene 1, and now underneath scene 1 you're in the red button world. And you got all these other weird things up here. Over, down, and hit. Let's click on over and press F6. Okay, then you click away for a second, and now what you can do, you're going to switch to properties. You can change the color of this. Let's make it go blue. So what that means is, and I'm going to go back up to the top level, when I go over it, it changes to blue. Other things that you can do. Let's go back into the underground, double click. Okay, let's go to the down. Let's press F6 again. Okay, this time I'm not going to change the color, but watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click on it, and with my cursor keys I'm going to go down, 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 and then over to the right, 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 right. So I'm pressing the arrow keys on the cursors. Okay, now what did that do? Well, I'll show you. Let's go back up, play it again. So when you go over it, it turns blue. Now when you press your mouse down, it sort of like moves down, like it looks like it's being depressed. Isn't that cool? All right, let's add some other cool features. Let's go back into the underground, and let's go back into over. So when you're in the over state, you can actually write words. All right, so I click on the T letter. All right, I'm going to put a little thing here. I'm going to say, you're over me. And I'll just stretch that out this way. Okay, now you're only going to see those words when you actually are over the mouse. Okay, so watch. When you go over it, it says, you're over me. When you go away, it's gone. You're over me, When you press down, it's gone. It's only when you're over it, it says those words. So that's some cool features that you can do with buttons. Now, buttons in and of themselves, they're stupid. They don't do anything until you start programming them. And this is where now you got to really pay attention, because when you write fancier Flash programs, you got to add some intelligence to them. And this is like our first step in computer programming. We're going to do a lot of this semester, so you got to get used to this. Okay? In this program called Flash, they call their computer programming action script or actions. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to put some brains on this button, that red button, and we're going to tell it to go somewhere, to play something, to stop, whatever. Okay? And we're just going to give you a little hint today. Later on, over the next couple of days, there'll be even more stuff related to buttons. But just for today, I want to give you a taste of what it's about. Okay, so the way you get to program the button is, first of all, make sure you're on the top level now. You're not in the underground. This is the underground. Go back up here. Right click. There's a lot of choices here. This is the one we're after, actions. You're going to press it. Whoa, what's this? Now, yours might not look like that. Yours might look like this. Okay, got all these words here, and then this white box here where you're going to type computer commands. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to press global functions, and all these words appear. Movie clip controls, and more words appear. So I'm going to double click on the word on. So what happens when you do computer programming? You wait for the computer to respond to your actions. So I'm saying when I let go of the mouse, so on, and see this word there, double click it, release. Now I put my mouse right there and I press enter, because I want these two squiggly lines to have a beginning and an end. So you're going to see squiggly lines a lot in computer programming. The first squiggly line is the beginning, the other squiggly line is the end, and you notice they go in opposite directions. Just like brackets, opening and closing brackets. So on release, which means after I let go of my mouse, I want to do something. Now what can you do? Well, if you get good at computer programming, you know the commands. If you don't, what you do is you pick them from these things. So there's a bunch of commands. We're going to use some of them over the next couple of days. Here's some other ones. Browser. Get URL. That's the one I'm going to use right now. So I'm going to double click. And then inside of here, I'm going to put in quotes http://www.yahoo.com. And what this would do, if you pressed it, it would go to somewhere on the internet. Okay? And then if you played it, when you go over it, it would go on the internet, and in a second, you will end up going to Yahoo. Alright, isn't that cool? Okay, so that's the basic idea of using a button with intelligence. Alright, and this is called action script. And then you go, well, how do I get back to the other step after? See that word right there, timeline? That brings you back to the timeline. Alright, now there are fancier things you can do with buttons. I'll show you one to finish up today. Whether you'll be able to do something like that, it's a bit tricky, but I want to show you some of the cool things you can do. We got a few minutes, so let me close this. Alright, and we'll do one more example, and I'll do a button again. I'll stick with a rectangle. It doesn't really matter, but something trickier is going to happen inside of this in a few minutes. Anyway, there's a shape. It's not a button yet. You go like that. You convert it to a symbol, button. Okay, we'll call it blue box. Okay, now we go into the underground. Alright, and we go to over, and we press F6. This is going to be a bit tricky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my name to appear in here, and when I go over it, my name's going to spin around. Alright, so it's a little weird, but we'll get it to work. Now watch what happens. First of all, I'm going to do my name up here, and I'm going to do it not in blue, because then it'll blend right in. You won't be able to see it. I'm going to put my name right here. I'm going to type in Shirley. Okay. So now I'm going to use that trick, the movie inside a movie. Alright, so what you do first is you grab the whole thing and you make it a movie clip. Okay, so I'm just going to call it name. Now watch, it's on button. You got to change it to movie clip. Then I'm going to grab it again, and I'm going to convert it. And this time I'm going to call it rotating name. I'm going to click OK. Now this is getting kind of crazy. We're in the top level. Now we're in the button world. Now we're going to double click and we're going to go down even one more layer, the rotating name world. We're going to go here, press F6, do not move my name, leave it where it is. I'm going to go in between and tween it and rotate it. Okay, so there's my name spinning around. Let's go back to the button, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag this right in the middle of the blue thing. What is that going to do? Let's see. There's a button, kind of stupid, not thinking about it. Now when I go over it, there's my name spinning around and it goes away. Spins around and it goes away. Kind of cool. Okay, so that's kind of neat extra features that you can do with buttons. Okay, do one more little thing to wrap it up, but just to give you a taste of where we're going with these buttons. Close this one off. Alright, so let's have something going across the screen, like an arrow or something. Alright, and we grab the whole thing, we convert it to a movie clip. Okay, we'll call it arrow. Alright, start the arrow there, and let's do it the cool way this time. We're going to create a motion tween, and we'll just drag it to there. And when you play it, it goes across the screen. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a button stop it. Okay, so that's the arrow. Now we're going to add a button, and this is going to be our button layer. And on this layer, we're just going to throw a button in here. We'll make it red for stop. Alright, and the way that you make it a real button is you grab the whole thing, convert it to a button, and we're going to call it the stop button. Okay, and I guess you can go in the underground and make it fancy. I'm not going to this time. I'm just going to do pure computer programming. So I'm going to right click on it, got to go to actions, and we got to say on release, and then put yourself right there, press enter. Okay, how do you stop it? Stop. But you got to use these brackets. It's kind of weird, I know, but that's how you actually stop it. So let's try it out. There's the arrow freaking out, going back and forth. Stop. And it stops. Okay, so there is now how you create buttons. Some fancy, some not so fancy. But here in this step is a regular button with some intelligence. And the intelligence is this new stuff we're going to start doing a lot of called ActionScript. When we do the other language, C#, it's going to be a little bit different, but that's the basic idea. How to work with buttons and how to use them. Okay, now also included, and I've got a couple more seconds to show you this, there are cute buttons that have been already made for you, and I think in this particular thing, where are they? Common library, there they are, buttons. Okay, so there are buttons in here. Let me just check this. Let's see what we got. Old button shadow, button bars. Let's just grab one for fun. There's a button. Okay, so these ones are already been designed for you. Some of them are a bit fancier than others. What kind we got in here? There's a button. I think they have some classic old ones in here too that I used to like. There it is, classic buttons. Here's an arcade button. That one's kind of cool. Okay, those are pre-done buttons that you can program and they'll do something. Okay, so good examples, and that's a nice little lesson on buttons.